All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the AI Operator podcast. We are welcoming Bill, founder of SalesCaptain, London Clay Club host, and top LinkedIn lead generation voice of 2024. Bill has helped startups scale to millions in revenue, trained thousands of marketers, and authored a go-to manual on Outbound, as well as replacing an entire SDR team with AI-powered systems. So we're going to dig into the playbook behind his success and the future of sales automations. Bill, welcome to the show. So excited to have you here.
It's a pleasure, man. Thank you for the invite.
Of course. Yeah. So as I mentioned, I'm excited to dive into a lot of topics. You are somewhat of like a serial entrepreneur from my understanding, and have scaled multiple organizations. So I definitely want to dive into that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about your B2B and GTM motions that you run, and maybe what had you interested in that in the first place. I meet a lot of people that are like, mostly inbound people. They have a lot of paid traffic, then we have a lot of the outbound and B2B go-to-market stuff. So why don't we start off? Could you share just a little bit for everyone listening today about your background as you've kind of scaled these different organizations and ultimately ended up at SalesCaptain?
Yeah, so I've been in marketing for the past 10 years. Started with one of the world's first growth marketing agencies. So I've been on the cutting edge of digital since 2015. Became head of growth, ended up recruiting and also working with really big clients all the way from RevPilot to Nestle to the airport in Singapore. Definitely quite a bit of variance. I've been part of the strategy team for AdWorld. So during COVID, we hosted the largest marketing conference. We had speakers like Aaron Huffington, Seth Godin, Scott Galloway, the CMOs of MasterCard, and huge companies like that. Recruited them through Outbound, by the way, and cold email, and then started my first agency. Kind of flopped. Kind of in between, I worked with a creative studio, creative agency, working with direct to consumer brands. We were looking to grow it, and Outbound came as a channel. Stood out a little bit because we wanted a low budget channel to reach the US. First campaign was a failure. Second campaign improved a little bit. Third went a little bit better. In roughly 18 months, we had scaled that agency to $1 million in ARR. I'm now a partner in that agency, and kind of somewhere in between, we said, why don't we do this for other companies? And that's how in 2021, we started SalesCaptain. And we've been growing ever since. So growing both SalesCaptain as a B2B outbound and go-to-market agency, and obviously B2B software and service businesses since then.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. What a cool background. It's pretty cool how you're able to figure out how to do it for yourself and then ultimately turn that into a product for others.
Yeah.
I've struggled personally with B2B outbound and, really trying to figure out what that is. And I feel like there's a lot that actually goes into it. Your offer matters, your opening lines matter, right? How you're actually sending and how much you're hitting the inbox. Like there's so much that actually really goes into a good outbound campaign from my understanding. Now, I'm not so much a marketer. I'm not a lead gen guy, right? We build the systems kind of once you have the meeting booked and everything that happens from that point on. Take us through, when you compare B2B outbound to things like paid and organic, do you actually like the B2B outbound motion more than these others? Or is it something you just kind of happen to like fall into, got good at, and now that's what you like best?
Yeah. So let's start from the basics. The definition of inbound and outbound marketing was something that HubSpot developed when they started doing digital marketing. One of the first companies, thanks to their content and email marketing efforts, they became what they are today. Obviously, a really good product as well. And they came up with the distinction based on who puts the force in the buyer journey. Is it the user themselves who's driving things, or is it the business? About 5 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, they published a blog post saying that paid ads, which they had included as an outbound channel, is now an inbound channel, simply because the level of targeting that you can do is so close, to actual intent. Our thesis and what we're presenting at HubSpot's Inbound conference this year is outbound is now an inbound channel. So outbound is now inbound in the sense that we're in this B2B data renaissance era where getting access to data across the buyer's journey, both from your CRM, from your website, from your LinkedIn profile, all the way to the market, your competitors, their followers, companies, etc., is now so easy and so effortless if you're using AI and the right tools that outbound can have the same level of relevance and intent that inbound has. And in fact, if you do the exercise, if you do the time mapping, if you build a list of companies and prospects, you can then use the same audience that you develop, not just for outbound, but you can also use it for ads. You can use it for all sorts of things and campaigns. So yeah, I'd say outbound in general is now an inbound channel. The way and the reason it stood out to me is because it's one of the most immediate channels for go-to-market and for achieving product market fit. And I've always been a fan of startups, especially software. So looking into it as a channel, I'd say it's one of the first activities that we all instinctively do when we want to get something. When you want to find a school for your kids, what do? You open Google Maps, you check out your neighborhood, you create a TAM. These are the 20 schools I want to go to. You start calling, you compare offers, and then you end up making a choice. So I'd say it's like part of like startups, business, recruitment, hiring, getting funding for your business. So it's like I think it's a foundational skill for someone doing go to market.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, I would say the barrier of entry when it comes to outbound is so minimal. And that's why I think it's such a cool entry point. But then it's so scalable that, the largest organizations out there have great GTM motions and outbound motions. I really like how you kind of clarified like inbound versus outbound. And now that, the tools have gotten so good at pulling lists that you can almost consider outbound, inbound if done properly. When you define properly, like what does that mean to you? What is a proper outbound motion when you're actually, identifying people on that list and going after people?
There's just one variable, and that is relevance. And how you go about answering it has a lot of different strategies and tactics. But at the end of the day, it's like, can you identify people? So can you do the list building in a way that when you come up with the message, these people are going to resonate with the message? Because the essence of not spam communication, which is anything around us, is marketing that is relevant, marketing that is personalized. And by personalized, I obviously don't mean saying "Hey, first name" or say mentioning where you went to school or things like that. If they have a dog, I mean actual relevance based on what they're going through, what their company's going through, what their industry is
Yeah.
going through. Yeah, that's it.
So, how has AI helped people increase the relevance, um, or how easy it is to find people
Yeah.
that these products are relevant to? Because I do feel like a large part of most failed GTM motions are exactly that, is the lack of product market fit, just a poor offer maybe entirely that
Yeah.
just like doesn't resonate with people. Where are you seeing AI really kind of pull into that? I know you're a top partner with like Lemlist. Obviously we have tools like Clay and all these other stuff.
Yeah.
What have you seen?
I'll give you an example. If you wanted to reach out to media buying agencies in the US, what you had to do in the old days is, assuming the data is available on LinkedIn, you had to go on LinkedIn. The industry category for all marketing and advertising agencies, broadly speaking, was advertising/marketing. So you had to pull a list of those companies and then you would reach out. But under marketing and advertising, you'd also find companies like SalesCaptain and many other companies who don't exactly fit the company description, but they don't have anywhere else to be. So there's a great number of outliers and there's a great number of companies and people that exist out there that don't necessarily correspond to the typical classification. And you can say the same thing about all kinds of businesses, including businesses that are on Google Maps. It gets even worse there. So one really easy and obvious use case for a tool like Clay for using AI is, yes, you'll scrape that list, but let's say you only want to find programmatic agencies, you'll actually have AI go to the website and do the job that traditionally a BDR would do, Like go to the website, verify that they either have a page around programmatic, they mention a keyword. Something else that we did that worked pretty well is we check for job titles within those companies. So if they have things like media buyer, programmatic advertiser, etc., we know that it's a media buying company. And there's like so many examples out there. And that's like an easy one. Another one is like if you want to reach out to a certain sector, you usually have traditional old school companies. And then you also have a lot of service businesses, consultants usually in the industry, and you also have software businesses, let's say manufacturing, for example. Like you have the actual manufacturing companies, you have companies that cater to those manufacturing companies, service businesses, and then you have software. Yep. If you only want to reach out to the traditional manufacturing companies, in the old days, you had the industry category of manufacturing, but you couldn't distinguish.
Very broad.
And then you'd create a lot of spam. That's it. That's what I'm saying. It's like, it's just relevance. And you can do the same using AI for their pricing range, whether they have a board, whether they've received funding, if they've had any security breaches, like any sort of data that will be publicly available for a company and accessible that a human being could actually fetch. You can actually train AI to do it in seconds. And the beautiful thing is you train it once, and then you can repeat the search for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of prospects.
Incredible. Yeah, that's, the ability to crawl the internet now is pretty incredible. Honestly, I don't think most of the people probably listening and a lot of people out there even understand the depth at which some of these clay setups can actually go. I've seen a few myself that I've been shown, and it's pretty crazy what they can do. What would you say to someone that's never used like clay? How would you explain that to them? Because there are surprisingly enough a lot of people that still don't know what clay is. They're still using Apollo, for example. And very broad targeting, like you said. They pull a list of 2,000 people and they hand it off to their cold caller and say, call these people. How would you kind of define Clay's ability from your perspective?
Yeah, so the difference is like the big box static providers like Apollo and ZoomInfo. And we can go into the conversation about like, oh no, the data within ZoomInfo is not static, but it is. And providers that kind of cater into an a la carte model. The first thing that's different about Clay is also its pricing. Like you don't have an annual subscription, you buy credits, so it's based on your consumption. So it can actually scale really well, and the cost scales with it. Obviously, you get economies of scale, but that's not the point. The difference is, and the way I would present Clay is like it's a Google Sheet where you would originally put your prospect lists. Like, if we think about a company list or a prospect list, it lives on a Google Sheet, right? So we can think of Clay as a Google Sheet where every column, instead of just having static fields like email address, LinkedIn profile, company size, industry, etc., it can have the same columns, but you can have AI on top of the column, and that's how you program Clay. Like for every column, on top of the column, you have different data providers. One of them can be AI, OpenAI. So it's literally as if you were dumping the data for that company on ChatGPT, for example, and you were making a question. You were asking a specific thing. And same as you can do it with AI, you can also do it with hundreds of other data providers. So the other good thing about Clay is you can literally build a custom data universe. So from data like funding data, from data like merger and acquisition data, any single platform that has webhooks, you can import the data into Clay. And that's how you build a totally custom kind of data set for your business. The other thing, for example, is it includes waterfall enrichment, which is the process of checking with multiple data providers. Because one of the things was always, okay, I used this provider, but I wasn't able to find the prospect's email address. So Clay includes different waterfall enrichments where you can add 10 plus tools. If the email address or the phone number is not found on the first provider, it will keep testing with different providers and not charge you. So you can increase your find rates by up to 60 or 70%. The cool thing about it is now they've built personalized or customized waterfall enrichments, for example, for phone numbers in the EU versus North America, where we have different providers that have stronger data, better coverage for specific regions. different data providers for email addresses for local businesses or for info at businesses versus large enterprises who follow different standards. So it definitely requires creativity and requires a lot of tinkering, but you can literally build your own data universe with it.
Yep. I love what you just said, data universe. I think that's a great way to put it because that's also, I would say, the kind of the crux there though is it can get so complicated and overwhelming for the standard user who goes in there and they're like, this looks like a really bad spreadsheet, and like there's
Yeah.
like, what am I doing? But if you understand the complexities of it, it really is incredible. One of my favorite features is like the waterfall feature, right? And I've only used it to a pretty, at least personally, to a pretty archaic level, which was going in Sales Navigator, pulling 150 different LinkedIn profiles, bringing them in, enriching them with the waterfall through Clay, and getting all the contact information and being able to build like a good cold calling campaign
Yeah.
from there. Which maybe the relevance isn't as tight as it should be. But when you take it to a level like you're talking about, you're able to pick exactly what data points
Yes.
mean something to you as a business, and ultimately go out there. And for people listening, what that means is, different levels of like funding, different news articles or announcements that they have come out with, recently, new roles that they're hiring for. That's one that I think really works well for an agency like us, right? If we want to go find someone that needs HubSpot or needs an account built, if they're hiring for a HubSpot admin, then it's probably a pretty good sign that they need help with HubSpot. So, there's a lot of opportunity there to kind of go down that rabbit hole. So let's kind of back out a little bit. When we talk about SalesCaptain specifically, do you guys have cold callers and like, email, like, are you guys an agency where you are actually doing the work for people, or are you specifically setting up the GTM strategy and system and then handing it off to that organization?
Yeah, so we do both, and it has to do with the existing structure and the model that the business has for its sales motion. So if a company already has BDRs, unpopular opinion, by the way, I don't think everyone within a business should learn Clay. One or two or three people within the business should learn Clay, map out the entire market, do lead scoring, have different criteria that they can identify tier one, two, three. Tier one, you can hand it over to the BDRs. You can have it handed over to the sales reps for them to do cold calling and more ABM style campaigns. Tiers two, three, and onwards, it should be automated campaigns at scale because you now have the data and the ability to do it at scale. So we'll do both. We run in a done for you model where we'll build the prospect lists, we'll run the campaigns, we'll optimize, and we'll run it as like an external modern BDR team. And we also have the model where we'll go in and implement, CRM enrichments, website form, real-time ICP classification, tiering, et cetera, et cetera. The other good thing about Clay we didn't mention is you can also do that in real time. So let's say someone visits your website, you can have tools that detect that. There's an interesting announcement coming from Clay's side on that. You can detect website visitors, let's say with our B2B, send them to Clay, qualify them in real time, and then if they're relevant, you can check if they exist in the CRM as well. And if they're relevant, you can reach out. So there's things that you can do in real time that you used to employ and bother people with things like, oh, as soon as someone, fills out a form, call them within a minute. You don't have to do that anymore because you can get AI and tools like Clay to do that for you. So yeah, the
Incredible.
way we work is, we work kind of like as RevOps implementation and go-to-market implementation within the business, or oftentimes we'll build the Clay workflows because they need something really specific, make sure the data is mapped correctly, and then hand it over to their sales team to run and get the data from it.
Amazing. I love that, man. Question. So we obviously are like a sales ops agency, but we focus more so on the system that is holding all of the data, right? We're not so much a go-to-market or like a lead gen organization. So, with that, what is your opinion on HubSpot versus Close.com? Go High Level is another one that a lot of people are using. Some people are like Pipedrive. People are Salesforce still. which one's your top, and then why, and then what would be your second like choice as far as a CRM specifically?
Yeah. So something you probably didn't know, we personally use Close at SalesCaptain, and we've been using it for the last like 3 years now.
Let's
And the
go.
reason
Love
for it
that.
is like, and I think it goes back to not that it's the perfect option. I think it has been the perfect option for us so far,
Yep.
because we didn't have many marketing channels implemented, and also because it's super fast and it really covers what we want to do. So I'd say like Close, if you're getting started, something like Close works really well. Maybe Pipedrive, but it gets unnecessarily complicated and it doesn't give you additional benefits. And then if you're scaling, like most of our clients, honestly, are on HubSpot. The only issue is like we're currently paying, I think, Close about $300 a month or something like that. With HubSpot, you start at $1,000 a month. So there's a price
Yep.
difference that, if it makes sense. So, for example, HubSpot can track website visitors, where they're coming from, so you can have attribution from all your marketing sources. It connects with your Google Ads, anything you're running on the paid ads front. So if you're running multiple advertising and marketing channels, it's definitely worth it because it allows you to track the source without
Yep.
engineering too many things. If you're not, and if you're a more traditional sales-led org, or if you're doing cold calling as part of your motion or outbound, I would say Close is a better fit because it's not too complicated.
I couldn't agree more. I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, if you are a marketing heavy organization and you have a marketing team that like actually knows what they're doing, HubSpot could be a great option. If you don't, like by default, in my opinion, it's like, okay, then use Close because you're gonna miss out on 90% of the benefit that HubSpot offers. And usually, if you don't have a marketing team that's in the data enough to really care about that stuff,
Yeah.
you're probably not at the level of scale that HubSpot would ever make sense anyways. Um, we love Close. We're like Close.com's number one partner. We build a ton of Close accounts, and it's just the best sales focused CRM. 90% of the time that we're working with HubSpot is to like fix just complete chaos inside of the system and simplify. Whereas Close, most of the time, it's like new build outs and we're
Yeah.
building something to scale. So that's cool to hear you're on Close because I don't think it gets enough love. Um, you know, it
Yeah.
and HubSpot's marketing was just so good over the last decade that anyone that believes like, oh, I'm trying to scale, I have to be on HubSpot
Yeah.
is like how they kind of think about it. Like if I'm scaling, I'm on HubSpot, and you mentioned that, right? Like, and that's simply not the truth. I mean, we know organizations doing 50 to $100 million on Close and just like cranking. So that's pretty cool. So, when would you recommend an organization bring their outbound sales motion internal versus using an outside partner like yourself? Because that's always something I kind of struggle with. Like, should they do it themselves? We're a good example, I guess, of this. Like, should we be doing it ourselves,
Yeah.
or is it easier just to get an agency to do it? My experience, agency, if you can find a good one, an agency is just way like it's something I don't even have to touch. On the lead gen piece, I think the handoff then to a skilled closer, or AE, whatever you want to call them, can be a good motion. What's your opinion there?
Yeah, I think it has to do with multiple factors. The obvious one is the cost, right? Like when we work as sales captain with a business, we have about 4 different specialties that work on one project. If you were trying to hire those people, especially in the US, it would easily be more than 300K a year in salaries, if not more. So with SalesCaptain, like it's much less than that, and you get a team that's trained specifically on that. But there is, so I'd say if you're doing it for the first time, if you don't have the expertise in house, if you want to train someone, if you want to learn best practices, then working with an agency is a good way to go about it. But you still might say, you know what, we care so much about outbound because we've seen it in our previous company, because it matches our business model, that we're going to hire internally and build the team at whatever cost. So it has to do a little bit with like, are you moving fast? Do you want to move fast and get results fast? Do you want to validate the channel? Do you want to just hire and, do it yourself internally? So it has to do with both the stage of the company as well as what they're trying to achieve. There's an interesting company that we're working with that currently works with 3 different outbound agencies, and they're able to get ROI from that. And their explanation is like, if one agency doesn't perform, we have the other 2 as kind of fallbacks.
Backup.
And because they've nailed both their offer as well as their go-to-market model, it makes a lot of sense for them to do that.
Yeah.
And we're one of the agencies that's like really working well for them right now. So yeah, so many use cases. But Alex Ramosi thinks says it best, like hire an agency, work with them for 6 months, 1 year, get them to really nail the channel, and then you can take it in-house. And I think it's a good way to think about it in general. Like, we're not there forever.
That's exactly what we tell our clients a lot of times, is the simple fact of like, hey, like, I don't want you to have to be on a retainer for the rest of your life. Like, I ultimately want to come in, build you something really cool. We have a great partnership. And then like, you get to choose to keep me on because you want to, not because you have to. And I've always liked that model. And then it's funny you mentioned the 3. I almost pulled the trigger. We ended up going paid ad route, which has been great for us. But when we were going to go with a cold calling B2B outbound motion, I had 3 agencies lined up, literally the same thing. I had 3 lined up. I was going to pin them all against each other because I was like, hey, like, worst case scenario, 2 of these doesn't work out, 1 crushes it. And then like, I'll just go spend the rest of the money with them. Best case scenario, all 3 do really well. And then, we can just go with whoever we like. But I saw that as kind of a way to like hedge the risk, because for a lot of people listening, and this might be something good for you to kind of talk about or address, there is like this feeling a lot of times that there's a high level of risk with outbound, especially cold calling. I think a lot of people have been not burned, but just they've hired an agency, or they've tried to do it themselves so unsuccessfully, so that they have a little bit of pain in their heart about it. What do you say to people in that situation? Like, obviously just work with someone that's better, because from your experience, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're like, well, yeah, this is like, easy for us.
Yeah.
But it is interesting because I know a lot of people are like, I will never try that again, because they just wasted a ton of money. Now, on the flip side of that, anyone listening, you've probably done that with ads also, right? Like, the odds of you spending $10,000 on ads and them just working the first time. I mean, currently at this moment, I have a competitor or someone opting into my ads over and over and over. Someone like, and they're just handing it to their team, and their whole team's opting in. And it's like horrible. It's breaking my entire pixel. I'm spending more money at this point just to prove the point, right? But I think there's pain on both sides. So what do you say when it comes like outbound, and someone hesitant to try it again?
Yeah, so I've been in the marketing space for the last 10 years, specifically in the agency space, and I've had clients telling me they've been burned with their marketing agency or someone they outsourced it to since 2015. So it's not new to me. And it still happens to us at SalesCaptain. They're like, oh, we're going to give it a shot in-house. Oh, we ended up working with a freelancer, etc. I think a lot of times, and I know it's going to sound mean, but it's reality, some people have to get burnt in order to realize your value. When they call you too expensive, oh, why do you want a 4-month pilot, this and that? And when you can't read the signals, that's the other thing, right? So with SalesCaptain, we've been investing in our marketing. We have one of the largest marketing teams for an agency our size, churning content, educating the market, being there at events. We organize the Clay Club in London. I don't get paid for it. Like, we pay the teams for our team's flights to be there. We dedicate time that we could be spending on clients because we truly believe in what we do, and we truly believe in outbound. Similarly, like this podcast, we don't make money off of it. I'm doing it because I fucking love it, even if it's like 9 p.m. So I would say, like, building the brand, creating the awareness, educating the market, having the case studies, having the references, having the sales materials, having the ability to present and clearly articulate things. If someone can't read that and they fall for people who promise them, because why do people say I've been burned? They say they've been burnt. And if you look at the companies that they point to, it's typically what I call like the get rich quick pros, companies that promise you the star and the moon and then end up under delivering and really disappointing. So if someone prefers like we just generated 5 million in pipeline and kind of crap like that, I'm not saying they deserve that, but since they haven't developed the filter to be able to judge,
Yep.
they're probably going to end up with a company like that. It's like, yeah, come on board. We'll give it to you even for free, or you'll pay per lead. Like I've heard that as well, like pay per lead
Yep.
for campaigns that take blood, sweat, and tears to make them work. So I'd say in general, you have to be able to distinguish the signals. You have to be able to check that the business has case studies. Like we now have more than 20 published case studies with actual numbers from actual industries. We have clients who literally tag us below LinkedIn posts and say, yeah, I work with SalesCaptain. It's really changed our business. We've been creating content for the last 3 years now, nonstop on LinkedIn, like 3 to 5 times a week, which is enormous. So again, I get the hesitation. I get it that sometimes people might not be ready. If you're not ready, don't do it. If you've been burnt, don't put the weight on the agency to prove you that you're not going to get burnt. Because what are they going to say? Don't work with us. They're going to say work with us. They're going to do whatever they can in their power to convert you. So if you think you're going to get burnt again, cool. Don't do it. Spend more time, evaluate character. It's the same thing with a hire, right? Like they say you can fake it in an interview, second interview, third interview. You can't keep acting for 6 months.
Yep.
So spend time getting to know the market, getting to know the businesses. Don't rush to make a decision because you have to hit your pipeline goals. That's it, honestly.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I think having a high level of discernment is any business owner's greatest attribute, and their ability to make quality decisions. And unfortunately, you can't let prior mistakes, as at least as a business owner, you can't let those burn marks on your heart impact the way you make decisions. You really do have to be able to discern what is happening in the current market, and what is the risk and what kind of risk tolerance you have to something like that, because there is a risk at any point. And what I've experienced from the opposite side is you can work with the best outbound agency or GTM agency on the planet. You can work with the best sales ops agency on the planet. But if your product sucks, if your marketing sucks, your offer sucks, right? If your internal team lacks discipline, there's a lot of other factors that go into it, and it's not always the agency's fault. I would say actually, a lot of times, unless it is the situation like you said, the get rich bros. And we lost a potential deal literally this morning. I woke up to like losing this deal that was on the table for a couple weeks to what I would consider potentially someone that kind of falls into that category. And at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of gimmicks, especially on LinkedIn. I hate going on LinkedIn. Yeah. Props to you for posting all that LinkedIn content. My team's on there. My COO is on there like full time. I hate it because every time I go on there, there's so many people that, it's like just the insane claims. Like you said, I generated 5 million in pipeline in 20 days, and there's just like hundreds of these, and they can't all be real. No. I'm sure some of them actually did that, but it's unlikely, or it happened one time. Yeah. And they've tried another 100 times to repeat it. So, okay. Yeah, for anyone listening, I think a lot of times you're better spending more money with a larger agency that has been in the game for a long time. I think you hit the nail on the head with blood, sweat, and tears. I think it really does go into that, and an agency doesn't last 4+ years if you suck. You go out of business.
No, man, it's
way
tough.
before.
It's tough. Yeah. And the other thing is, and it's exactly the same way I approach it. It's like, okay, whatever happened, something happened that we didn't like, that, went in the opposite direction. We lost revenue. We hired the wrong agency. Like, okay, look at your decision. Look at what happened. Look at if there's anything you can learn, and then move on. Sometimes it's luck. Sometimes it's chance. Sometimes you can learn something. You hired someone that didn't work out. Similarly, okay, cool. Find out what was it about the interview process, for example, that didn't work, maybe about the upskilling, whatever it is, and fix it. That's the essence of business. So we're all going to get burnt one way or another. One way to get burnt might be chasing phony claims. I get it. I hope it doesn't happen to me, but you never know. So yeah, is there something you can learn? Sure. If not, move on. And the other thing you mentioned is, which I think is really important to clarify, is like the strength of the offer matters significantly, because there's so many businesses that have existed simply because of referrals, simply because of luck, similarly,
Yep.
because luck can work in all of our favors. And then they try to go to market, they try to turn outbound on their fifth year, and they realize it's not working. The reason it's not working is not because the agency is bad, it's because the offer doesn't work, or because
Yep.
the market has shifted from 5 years ago and no one wants to buy, I don't know, CRM implementation or traditional SDR teams, for example. Like one of our big competitors was selling outbound by building an in-house SDR team at their agency. That
Yeah.
model no longer works. Like they're losing clients. There's no amount of outbound unless they offer the service for free. There's no amount of outbound that can fix that. But I think where the agencies are wrong, because I also see it in us, and that's what I say when what I mean when I say you have to identify it and address it. Is like, if the outbound strategist, go-to-market strategist, account manager, whatever you want to call them, is not brave enough and is not knowledgeable enough to know that, for example, outbound consists of three simple things: targeting, messaging, infrastructure. What I say is, like, if we are not able to identify which of the three within the messaging you also have the offer, which of the three is at fault, and provide recommendations or ideas of how to fix it, stop working with that agency. And
Yep.
that's what I tell people. Like, they ask me, what happens if we fail? There's no failure. It's like, it's three variables. It might be five, doesn't matter. Do we know which one has failed us? And do we know what we can do to improve? And then if it's the offer, have the balls to go back to the client, even though you might lose them, and say, hey guys, we've been trying it out for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. We've
Yep.
given it our best shot. We've had our entire team work on it. It's not working out. Rather than us, wasting your money, take a break, take a month, 2 months, 3 months, figure out your offer and come back. I guarantee you they're going to appreciate that way more than you keeping the same relationship, getting their money, not
Trying to
getting them
retain them.
results,
Yeah.
and then saying, oh, yeah, you know what? Next month it's going to be better. No, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. For everyone listening, targeting, messaging, and infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's a great structure. I love that, to kind of look at it. Because obviously if you're targeting the completely wrong people, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're messaging, that's where I ran a cold email campaign. It sucked. I am like failed, failed. And I like how you said that in the beginning. It was like you ran your first campaign, failure, second
Yeah,
campaign,
failed
failure,
big time.
third campaign worked better, and then over 18 months you figured it out. My first campaign was like flop. Second one flop. Third, now these are just like not huge campaigns, but they were cold email. My third one was even worse. And that's kind of when I was like, oh, maybe I'm not cut out, but it's not that I'm cut out. I don't have the education, right, on really crafting a good cold email offer. So for the people listening, also, something that's so important, and I've learned this the hard way myself. Your offer might work for referrals, like you just said, might work for these different things. But when you try to package it up in an email, cold email, or you try to package up over the phone, cold to a target client, it may not hit in the same way. Cold traffic is so different than warm traffic.
Typically does, right?
Um,
Exactly the same thing. I don't want to, because people
yeah,
get this idea like, oh, I need the cold email offer. No, you need the performance marketing offer.
yeah, yeah. Awesome, Bill. Well, I know we're coming up to the end of this podcast, so I want to make sure people are able to find you. So for Sales Captain, if you guys need outbound GTM strategy, Bill is your guy. So go ahead and reach out. Bill, you can find him at salescaptain .io, I believe it
Yes.
is. Yes, I got that right. So salescaptain.io. His name is Bill. What's your LinkedIn? Actually, we'll make it easy on everyone. We're going to put the links below. So just check them out on LinkedIn. Tons of great content. And then I happen to hear you say you are speaking or going to HubSpot Inbound. Are you speaking there or are you just attending?
Again there. Yes.
Amazing. Okay. So if you're going to HubSpot Inbound, we were there last year. Incredible event. They moved it from Boston to San Francisco this year, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's in San Francisco. That is pretty exciting. So it's good stuff, man.
Now, I heard when I heard it was happening in San Francisco, it was like it's happening in one of my favorite cities in the world. The theme is inbound. Our thesis is outbound is now inbound.
Yeah.
You look at Clay and what has happened. They literally just raised, I think, at a $3 billion valuation or something like
Crazy. Yeah.
crazy. So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, we know the message, we know what we want to say, and we have a lot of side events we're hosting along with the main speech at Inbound. Yeah, it's going to be crazy.
Incredible. Incredible. Well, make sure everyone can find your stuff. And I even have some business I'll send over to you because I actually have a couple of people asking recently about this. So I'll definitely try to put you in contact with them. And if you need anything else from us, let us know. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Great conversation. Thanks for sharing with our audience about GTM. And we'll see you on the other side. All right, Bill.
I appreciate it, man. It was a pleasure.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Cheers.